Analog horror is a subgenre of horror that uses the styles and aesthetics of vintage media, such as VHS tapes and cassette tapes, to create an unsettling atmosphere of horror. That is the definition of analog horror. And today, we will be discussing what exactly makes analog horror such a beautiful art form, but also why it's starting to fall from grace, and what exactly could save it. Here are my thoughts on analog horror. Well, before I get to my thoughts, I think I should give a small little history lesson. So, analog horror really came about a couple years ago, I'd say around 5 years ago, because a small little analog horror named the Mandela Catalog came out, and it blew up in popularity, right? So, everyone loved it, and I hate it, by the way. Worst analog horror out there, overglazed as shit. But I think it laid the foundation for modern day analog horror. Without it, we would not have analog horror today. So that's your small little history recap. That's how it came about. My thoughts on analog horror is it is one of the best art forms out. Analog horror is a beautiful horror genre that I think does not get enough love and attention, especially these last few years as it has been dying. And I'll go over that later. I got into analog horror personally around a year and a half ago. I started watching the Walton Files, and then I transitioned to more. I'd say the best analog horror to really prove how powerful and scary analog horror can be would be Gemini Home Entertainment, Greylock, and Monument Mythos. These are, I like to call it the big three of analog horror because Monument Mythos has a very good story. The other two are just scary as shit. Simple. I got into analog horror a while ago, and that's why I feel so sad talking about this topic right now because it is dying. Analog horror can be super scary because even with limited stuff, such as with Monument Mythos, it's pretty much an overglorified PowerPoint presentation. However, it does everything so well. It has story thematic elements, has hella history facts in it because it's revolved around US history. It's insane. It's an insane thing. Now, not many people might like it. It's a little niche. That's where I'm going to talk about Gemini Home Entertainment. Gemini Home Entertainment is pure scary. Now, it's been on hiatus for a few years, and I'm going to get back to that. And it's really scary actually. It's very unsettling, which is why I think it is great. I love it, which is why it's so sad that it's gone right now. And there's another one called Greylock. Greylock is the epitome of give an analog horror the budget of a normal horror movie and see what the fuck happens. Because it's good. It's really good. Um and that's why I think it's so weird that it's dying. It's the fact that there is not much going on in the analog horror scene. Greylock's been on hiatus for almost 8 months. Monument Mythos ended literal months ago, and like other analog horrors are just dying. It's a dying art form, which is really sad. And with Gemini being on hiatus, it's really the only thing going to keep it together now because it's the most hyped one right now. Um, and that's why it's sad. It's currently dying. Now, there is ways that we could fix this as an analog horror community. Number one, we could give the creators more time, wait around, or we can help spring up a new gen of analog horror. The one that I'm talking about most right now is Dr. Nowhere. Dr. Nowhere's channel is starting to get pique my interest because it could ride a whole different wave of analog horror because it's not very it's good, but it's not very like tech savvy as in budget wise. Kind of like how Mandela Catalog came about. It came about from literally just being able to make horror with nothing but bare bone resources like a camcorder, and that's it. That's all you need, man. You can make a fire analog horror with it. So with this new generation, the ways that we could fix it is by not only us analog horror lovers being able to understand the new wave, aka fucking Doctor Nowhere and all the other analog horror creators that are going to spring up because of analog like this. I mean, look at Kane Pixels. He came about when analog horror was at its drought. It came about as it was dying, right? It was almost completely dead. And yet the backrooms brought it back to life. People started watching the Walton Files again. I think we need to do the same thing with these upcoming creators, Doctor Nowhere and whatnot. Now, I'm not no big channel. I don't really care. I just wanted to talk about this because I am a very big fan of analog horror, and it's so just sad seeing it die. Like, it's best way to describe it is it's a die. It's just an art form. It's a very good art form. I think even Moist Critical could tell you that, which is probably completely false. He probably fucking hates analog horror. I don't know. I just think that the best way to fix the analog horror crisis is to just give in more. More people can make analog horrors. All you need is maybe $200, a nice camcorder, and a basic ass basement, and you can make a full analog horror. But that's also where another problem is. There's called laziness. There's some lazy analog horrors now, aka I'm talking about Spook Students, and I'm talking about Vintage 8. Now I like a lot of Vintage 8. Um, what are they known for? Children Under the House is a really good one by them, and I think that one river one, Tanagi Virus, Tangi Virus, came about from them. But nowadays, it's genuinely watching a slideshow presentation. It is watching a genuine PowerPoint, which could work if it had good thematic elements, but it doesn't. It never does. And that's where I think Monument Mythos really excelled because it was able to do that with genuinely the same tools, but just better. Another analog horror that came out fairly recently during the drought of analog horror was Vita Carnis. Vita Carnis, once it comes back up, I think analog horror is going to be on a high rise again because everyone loves Vita Carnis. Now, I watch channels that are genuinely only analog horror. Hell, I watch someone named Immortal Marcus. His entire channel is genuinely watching analog horror, analyzing it, and playing horror games, which is fine. Make your bag, man. But we as an analog horror community just need to give more back to it. That's how we fix it because it's dying. It is genuinely dying. It is about to it's putting one foot in the grave. It's not done yet, but it nowadays, instead of it being a cool side genre of horror that anyone can get along to, it's starting to become more of an indie thing, like a niche thing, which I don't think it should be. I think it should be regularly available. It's on YouTube. All analog horrors are on YouTube, which is why it's just so sad seeing it die. It's just so sad seeing it about to perish on its last legs. It makes me feel sad. And that's really where I think we as a community need to excel. Now, this video was just about covering the basics of analog horror. That's the description. I put it at the beginning. Analog horror is a subgenre of horror that uses camcorder and VHS footage for its base. And we as a community need to just help out. Give the creator of Gemini another year. I know that he's an amazing artist in the analog horror industry. And that's all about it. I think that's about it. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed it all. And I will see you guys around next time. If you guys want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and like the video. And for the analog horror creators out there, just pitch in a little bit more. Alright, I see you, Immortal Marcus. You're one of my favorite YouTubers right now, but please do help pitch in more. And that'll be all, friends. See ya.